Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's stream. I'll just adjust this camera, which for some reason seems to have been knocked out of position. And hopefully that doesn't look too bad. Let's just zoom that in a little bit more. There we go. And we'll carry on with carving the dragon this evening. Actually, that's just really reminded me I ought to change the title on this. Just in case anybody's expecting Punchcraft this evening. Unfortunately, we're not, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, we're not doing that. And if you're not another regular, well, if you are a regular and you're wondering why I sound a bit odd, I have just at the back end of a second cold in 2 weeks, and it's affected my voice. So that hopefully will recover over the next couple of days. Alright, so we are working on this right hand wing here to get the membrane and bones in place. And from there then we'll see how we go. So I'm working on this main arm bone and this first finger bone effectively at the moment. And just on this bit of the membrane here, I want to just lower it down so that the membrane is actually on the underneath of the bone rather than being on the top surface. It's on the bottom surface, which is what it's like on the other side here. So we're just matching it basically. If you are new to the channel, good evening, welcome to the studio. If you hadn't realised, this is carving. It's hand carving with hand tools. I'm not using any power tools on this. That's not for any particular, well, it's not any sort of particular reason for that, other than they're not fantastically easy to use in my studio space. And sometimes the power tools can actually be just too fast and a little bit hard to control when you want to do fine detail. Now I'm working with really sharp chisels here, so you can see I can virtually shave this wood. If you're not familiar with the wood, despite what it says on the left hand side, this is in America it gets called basswood. In Europe it gets called both basswood and European lime. It's both the same thing. It's an excellent wood for carving, in that it's a very easy wood to carve. It does have certain limitations. It's not a particularly strong wood in that respect. It will chip off very easily. So you know, whilst it does have some benefits for carving, as I say, it's is a very easy wood to carve. It does have limitations as well, so you know, as they say, horses for courses. For decorative pieces like this, then that's perfectly suitable. That's a V2. these little tiny tools, sometimes it can be really hard to I ought to know the difference by now, but it can be really hard to tell which what they are, whether they're U-shaped or V-shaped. And in fact, talking of seeing better, I'm going to change my glasses. Right. Just need to get into the elbow here. Which needs the fine tools to do. One of these days I'm going to buy another handle. Because I generally tend to use two chisels most of the time, swapping between them, and so I keep having to switch the handles, but one of these days I'll get one of those round two-its and I'll actually get on and do it, but for the moment I'll keep changing the handle. Now I'm just rounding excuse me, I'm just rounding this bone off. Which will help me determine if I've actually got the membrane deep enough. As if I don't do something silly like I just did, which is make a mark in the wood where I didn't want to. Bubbles the monkey, good evening, welcome to the studio this evening. My voice is getting a little bit better, although this morning it was rather low. And how are you doing today? Now I've got to be a bit careful around here because the wing membrane, of course, is skin, and it's got to join in with the skin on the body. It's got to be a smooth transition. So I've got to be a little bit careful just around there, not to create a crease. Unfortunately, I have to, because of the way the grain of the wood runs, I've got to do the carving on this bottom area from this angle, and the head's actually in my way at the moment. And it probably would remain that way as well, given that the way that the head is angled. If I carve this reasonably well, I don't actually need to try and sand the material afterwards. It can be very, very smooth, and I'll get a better finish like that than if I try and sand it afterwards. Now you might not see what I'm doing here. I am really shaving very fine sections of wood off, just to get rid of ridges. So that actually create a nice smooth area of wood. That doesn't look too bad. I'm actually being a little bit pedantic on this. I shouldn't actually really be taking this much care at this stage. I'm kind of doing finish carving work at too early a stage in the work, but I kind of like to see how it develops that way, and sometimes it means doing the work twice. But because I'm not that experienced at carving, and this is the first time I've ever carved a dragon, then I'm kind of working it out as I go along. I think that either needs to be a bit thinner or needs to be a bit deeper. I think possibly a little bit thinner, especially back here. So let's see if we can just adjust that a little bit. I think the elbow area is a little bit thick. As in, the bone looks too wide. Now I'm carving the edge of the bone a little bit here, but I've got to be a little bit careful. I don't actually want to score down into the wing membrane, because if I do that, it'll be extremely visible. And what I'll actually have to do then is I would have to carve the wing membrane down a little bit to get rid of the edge, the dark line that would be created. So I'm just trying to make sure the corner of the chisel doesn't actually dig in downwards. Just Jessup, good evening, welcome to the studio. And a good thing you've done there, Just Jessup, because Bubbles the Monkey is an excellent streamer. Doing all that bead artwork, and especially the piece that you're working on at the moment, Bubbles the Monkey. That's a real challenging piece. Oh, perhaps I just think it would be challenging. You might be sat there thinking it's dead easy. But that would be the skill involved. Yeah, just for the minute then I thought my microphone wasn't working, but it is. Okay, that's looking a bit better now. So just thinning this bone down, especially at the elbow end here. So I'm hardly using any force at all really on this. As you can see, I'm holding the chisel really between just a couple of fingers, so it's not something which requires an immense amount of force to do, isn't this? As I say, that's partly because of the wood that's involved. Other woods would require quite a lot of force, and if I was doing something like mahogany, I probably wouldn't be using hand tools at all. Well, hopefully you do well in the exam, Just Jessup. What exam have you got to do now? And painting by numbers. Okay. What's the image of Bubbles the Monkey? That's if you don't mind. I mean, if you don't want to say, that's okay. With painting by numbers, I always, if you're talking about the kits rather than something that you're doing for yourself, I always used to find when I did those, I ran out of paint. There never seemed to be enough paint in the little pots that they supplied. Probably me being somewhat heavy-handed, I guess, in the application, but. Right, this still doesn't seem to be quite round enough as a bone, so I probably want to go a little bit lower again. Okay, let's have a look at what this is. Oh, that's lovely. I love a nice landscape like that. I kind of would love to be, yeah, I'm going back to what I said last night, but I kind of would love to be able to do something like that, just, and I guess, I kind of guess I probably would if I had the confidence just to start. That's the key thing, just starting. Physics, I was quite good at physics. When I did my O-levels a long time ago. And statistics. Now, we didn't have statistics, just mathematics back then. Yeah, Just Jessup. Kind of like the punch craft that trainer was doing. On the back of it, I'd stenciled an outline. Whilst I didn't put numbers in, that's what they do when they do painting. They just put numbers into them. And contrary to what a lot of people think, it still takes quite a bit of skill to do a painting by numbers and make it look good. I didn't do it. Well, actually, no. I started A levels, but I never actually did it. I actually got I did 1 year of A levels, and then got myself an apprenticeship, which would allow me to go to university. So I did that anyway, and so I never did A levels, but I did get some. There were HNCs back then. HNDs, Higher National Diplomas, I think. HNC, HND. I never remember exactly what it was. So if I never actually did A levels in the end. Yeah, I hear that a lot. From people. Effectively, the argument being, why do I need to learn statistics or whatever it is when I just want to make something, or just want to be able to paint, or and it's surprising just how much of it comes in. If you literally ever did want to make it your job, for example, to make things, and you need to be able to do lots of things like calculations and maths, stock levels, these sorts of things, amount of material required. I wasn't saying you were saying that just that's what a lot of people go. A lot of young people do. I just want to do this. Why must I learn physics or chemistry or whatever it is? Because I just want to do X. And it's really surprising just how much that sort of stuff, even if it's not the exact stuff, just how much it helps you later on. Yep. It is surprising. I was using a form of standard deviation the other day, doing some stuff at work, and it's kind of amazing just how much it gets used. Things like that. It gets used in all sorts of weird things. That sort of maths that you might not think of. Supermarket, for example, use a lot of stuff like that to calculate where to put stuff in the supermarket. Which shelf to put it on, where to put, what to put next to what, and things like that. Actually, the other day at work, I was wishing I actually could remember a lot more of my the maths that I did do at school, because I was trying to do curve fitting in order to be able to do some extrapolation. sorry, some interpretation and then extrapolation of a set of numbers. And I was for the life of me, I was trying to work out how to solve effectively quadratic equations. Only they've got anything up to about 5 terms. Have I heard of the quadratic equation or a quadratic equation? Or is this a joke? Yes, I'm familiar with, well, I sound familiar with quadratic equations. That's not strictly true. I mean, I know it's x to the y plus x to the y minus 1 plus x to the y minus 2 and so on. Or I suppose you've got x to the 2 plus x to the 1 plus x. But something like that anyway. Yeah, something like that. I guarantee you will know them better than I do, Just Jessup. No, it didn't. It's x times y to the 2 plus x times y to the 1 plus x times y to the 0, which is of course of just x to the y. Yeah, anyway. I used to find them right easy to do at school. These days, not so easy. Now then, that's a finger bone. Okay, that's got to come a lot deeper down. Could do with grooving that, so I'll use this tool. Okay, the matrix calculations. If I remember rightly, when you work out all the terms of the matrix times the matrix, you get that long, something like the long form that I sort of mentioned. I can't remember exactly it. Oh, gee. Squad, good evening, welcome to the studio. You didn't have to make me jump then. It wasn't very loud, but it didn't have to make me jump. Not a good thing to do when I'm holding a sharp chisel. Dear, welcome. Thank you for following. That is most excellent of you. I do appreciate it. Thank you. Dear. we don't often talk complex maths on the on this stream. So if anybody else is worried we're going to get into that sort of thing, don't worry about it. It's unlikely to happen. Oh, it actually came out on the stream, did it? Yes, you saw me jump. Yeah, no, it hasn't. It wasn't very loud. Well, I mean, you obviously heard the volume. It wasn't very loud, and I don't quite know why I did jump, but now this, of course, this membrane here is joined to the body. It's joined to the arm and the elbow, and it's joined to the finger bones here. And so the sort of the angle between all of them is as though you're stretching a taut fabric. So I've got to at some point I've got to bear in mind that and actually carve this shape around here to match that sort of expectation. I mean, in living practice, I don't quite know how this would be, because of course this is like flying foxes or bats, where it's skin basically, so that's not fantastically stretchy. So yeah, doing it in some ways, this wing here for example, where these membranes are being shown as tight, in practice wouldn't really be so. They'd be quite loose. I suppose quite broad as well if there's any sort of force on the wing, which there may be wind or something here, because it looks like he's just landed. But so it's kind of an artistic license to show them as fairly taut anyway, on certainly on this side, because they just wouldn't be in real life, I don't think. But it looks better if they are shown as taut, I think. So this is one of these times where what looks good overrides what would really be in real life, I guess. Not fantastically, no. It's not that just Jessup. It comes and goes. I spend a lot of time dealing with sorting out and data cleansing. So I'm looking for things, correcting errors, to actually cleanse data, which is then used for other purposes. But from time to time, I do get involved in things. The most recently, we've been dealing with customer data and trying to understand buying patterns, and so statistics gets involved in that. You're looking for correlations between things. Possibly. I don't remember that term, so I couldn't tell you, to be honest, just Jessup. Carving angle here. Sorry, carving direction. The wood, I was carving the wood in this direction here, and it's actually coming up rough. I can see it because it's a change in colour. You can't actually see it on the camera, but I can see it here, and that's telling, one of the things it's telling me is I'm carving in the wrong direction. I need to carve this way in this particular area of the wood. When I carve the right way, are in the right direction here, the wood comes out a lot smoother and almost shiny. It's one of the indicators that help you understand the right direction to carve wood in. So if you carve it in the wrong direction, you have more of a tendency to split or rip the wood, which obviously doesn't, well, a split or as I say, I want to call it split or ripping the wood is an uncontrolled separation, and you know it's uncontrolled means that you don't know what's going to happen. And of course the worst that can happen is you ruin the piece that you're working on. The best that can happen is you get away with it. Using a small round U-shaped gouge here just against the bone, so that I don't create a sharp corner. I actually want a rounded transition from the bottom of the bone, because if you look like on your webbing on your fingers, for example, here you don't get a very sharp crease, it just sort of rounds away from the bone edges, and that's the effect I want here on the arm bones. Okay, that wasn't quite what I wanted to do, but we'll work with that. Of course you weren't around last night, Free, were you? I sat under an umbrella or in the shade for the whole of the well, virtually the whole of the day. So I didn't sit in the sun. I generally find it too hot for me and uncomfortable. And this is the result of actually being under an umbrella for 2 weeks. It annoys my wife somewhat silly because she actually sits out in the sun or lays out in the sun, and I'm browner than she is. I think she keeps trying to persuade me to actually sit out for 2 weeks. She won't succeed, but she keeps trying to persuade me just to see what colour my skin would go, because I tan very easily. Oh, you're back up Yeah, you mentioned it the other night on the stream, didn't you? Yeah. Harito, isn't it? Harito, I think. No, I've not been in the UK. I've been over in Greece. Actually, out on one of the islands rather than the mainland, but. Looks a little bit odd. It's a bit. The elbow looks a little bit. Still looks a little bit thick. Of course, we are ignoring anatomy here because there isn't a lot of muscle around this. But who knows how on earth dragons do it anyway, so. I think we'll get away without muscles. I've got a couple of little dimples here, which I'm just trying to round out. Effectively just carve around them so that I carve the profile so that they actually disappear. I think I could actually do with giving this a little bit of a sharpen. Okay. Isn't the Canary Islands quite cool in summer? I thought they were a UK winter destination, shall we say? The Canary Islands. Either or I'm totally mixing up my islands, which is quite possible. My geography is not that good. Well, it's not good at all, never mind that good. Says the man who lives by the seaside, of course, their 3D block. And yes, I know it's not the same. Of course, just Jessup, I have absolutely no idea where Morocco is. And that time I did not jump Darth Bushel. Thank you very much for following the studio. That is most kind of you, and I really do appreciate you doing that. Thank you. Right, this chisel is now working a little bit better now that I've just sort of technically I have sharpened it, but it wasn't that blunt before. Often when I speak about sharpening chisels, people tend to think of using whetstones or things like that, which are actually quite coarse things. What I've just done is more or less just polish the fine edge that exists on this chisel, and that's enough to make a significant difference. You have no hope, just Jessup. Down there somewhere. Yeah, no, I could not point to it on a map, but I kind of know roughly where you mean. Effectively, I'm just being lazy, because I could actually learn where some of these places are, and given that, I mean, as I say, I'm a licensed radio amateur, so at one time I used to actually have a world map up on the wall in front of me, so that I could actually see where the people I'm talking to were, and I could find all these places quite easily, but not anymore. No, it's okay, just Jessup, thanks very much. I'm doing it again, I'm carving the wrong direction. What's happening is I can't get words out tonight. I just can't bring them to my brain. What I'm trying to think of is this stuff, the lines, I can't actually think of the right. Isn't this really weird? I cannot think of the right word that I'm trying to think of. I'll come back to it in a minute. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree. Yeah, Free. I mean, at one time, I used to be able to remember something like about 100 to 200 telephone numbers, just because of the job that I was doing, and I could remember those numbers and use them without a moment's hesitation. These days, I have problems remembering PIN numbers, never mind telephone numbers. Great. Thank you very much, Just Jessup. That's exactly the word I was looking for. The grain of the wood here dips down in this direction, and so when I'm using the chisel like this, the chisel is trying to go down, and it starts to rip up the grain of the wood. So I have to come in from this angle so that I cut across the grain, and that's A is a lot more controlled, but B actually creates a smoother surface, as I mentioned earlier. Probably because I'm getting old, but there are times when just like that word, then the word grain just would not come to mind, but it's weird sometimes how your brain just will not, you've forgotten the word, and you know the word, you just cannot bring it to mind. And if those of you who are watching are thinking, he's getting senile, well, whilst you're probably right, don't forget you'll get there as well. I've just got there ahead of you. Right, this could actually do with a little bit of a polish as well. If you're not sure what I'm doing, this is just leather, a leather strop basically. So all I'm going to do is just drag the chisel backwards, holding it at the correct honed angle. But what I've got to do is rotate the tool as I bring it backwards in order to get the whole cutting surface, which is sort of 180 degrees around the bottom here. And I've got to hold it at the right angle whilst I rotate it. It's not actually as difficult as it might sound. It's easier if you take it a little bit slower as I'm doing here, but with a bit of practice you can actually get quite fast at doing this. But there's no particular rush to do it. It's actually better to take your time and make sure you keep the right angle, because if you don't, you can actually end up, well, this is polishing, so it wouldn't really do it much, but if you're doing this against a stone, it would be quite easy to change the angle of the cutting surface here, and then the tool wouldn't actually cut as well if you did that. The angles are specially designed, if you like, for the tool to give you the optimum cutting edge. Now, if you'll have heard me say this before, but dragging it backwards that way actually creates a curled lip on the sharp edge. So what I've got to do now is just come onto this side of the block, and these are profiles which will fit the inside. So all I'm going to do is drag it backwards along the profile, and that actually straightens out the curl, and therefore I get a really nice sharp edge on the end of it. Yeah, I can kind of understand that. That's a lot sharper now. Yeah, sometimes well, there'll be some words sometimes that I'll hear, and yeah, and well, I just think of something now like a chair, for example, in English, obviously, or a table, and I'll sometimes just go, why do we call it a chair? What is it that made somebody go, that's called a chair? Why do we not call these things that we sit on wardrobes? Or cups. Why is it called a chair? Why is it called a table? I guess that's philosophy, but just sometimes it just strikes me like that. And I can spend half an hour pondering, what would it be like if this thing I'm working on was called a caravan? I'm carving on a caravan. And it's, why not? Right, actually, the reason I wanted to sharpen that was to work on this side of the bone here. Yeah, actually, Fee, I was just thinking about that myself just then. I was just about to say there are times. I mean, sometimes I'll actually say a word. Yeah, it might be like wardrobe. I'm thinking, is that the right word? Yeah, wardrobe, and yeah, certainly when you spelt it, I'm trying to think of. There's quite a few words that even when I spelt them, as you say, when you spell them correctly, they look wrong. And yeah, a number of times I go for actually type something into a computer just to check whether I spelt it right. And of course, that's a bit of a slippery, well, not slippery, it's a bit of a dangerous thing anyway because of the different differences between different languages like English and American with spelling and things. But okay, well, it's looking reasonably acceptable to me at this stage. I want to carve that edge of the body a little bit. Oh, the why question. Why? Why? Of course, the perfect answer to the why question is because. What I'm just doing here is just rounding off the body, the edge of the body here, just so it matches this side a little bit. The membrane's probably joining the body a bit too high. I may take it down a little bit, but just for the moment I'm just smoothing that transition. And of course, getting underneath there is going to be quite difficult. I'm going to leave that till a little bit later. Okay, let's do a bit more. Do some down here in the middle of this winglet. Yeah, the font of all knowledge, Google. Well, just Jessup's just done a physics exam, so you get some help there. GCSEs. I'm not sure they still have those around 3D block. I think they give them away with toffee wrappers, don't they, GCSEs these days? I know that's not true, it's just the age-old joke that everybody, of course, always says that, you know, as you get older, the exams seem to get easier for the people that have to do them. Yeah, that is good. Long may she continue to do well. Physics actually used to be one of my favourite subjects, and one of my least favourite subjects was biology, but I actually got, that was the biology exam was the one I got my best result in. "14 exams. Trying to remember how many I took. I think I took about 8 subjects as well, so I'd have done 8 exams, not 14, but 8. Although I actually got 9 exam results out of 8 exams. I think what I did. Of course, you always had to do English literature and English language, maths, physics, chemistry, biology. I did engineering drawing, metal work. I'm trying to think what the other one was. I think. Well, no, I did at least 8, and I got 9 results. I think so. 8 exams for 8 subjects, and I got 9 results because I got two results for one exam. Webbo is Beast. Good evening. Welcome. I actually didn't mind most of the subjects at school. I mean, back then I was interested in electronics and amateur radio. So the physics and the maths, which I was quite good at maths. Actually, I was very good at maths. Were kind of natural to do. So I was really interested in those. I had no interest in being a doctor. So the biology just had no meaning really to me. Chemistry sort of came in between because you got a mixture of maths and physics in the chemistry as well as the pure chemistry, but yeah, fascinating stuff. Well, it's a useful thing just to put on CVs and things, isn't it? Free, if ever you needed one. Yeah, you've done a degree. I actually never did a degree. I was quite happy to do one, but I wanted to do. The employer that I worked for at the time would have paid for me to do a degree course, but they wanted me to do it full time. And whilst it sponsored me with the college or the course fees, they wouldn't pay me. I'd have quite happily done it as a night school, which would have been quite a long time, but they wouldn't actually let me do it that way. at the place I was working at, so I never actually did a degree. I did get something like 5 HND or HNCs, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. And of course it's that long ago now that it doesn't actually matter. Yeah, I've always been like that, Free. I enjoy learning stuff. So, you know, it's just something I like doing. It doesn't matter particularly what it is. Well, I've got to be interested in it, of course. And I prefer to learn stuff if I have a reason to learn it, rather than just learning it for the fun of it. Although sometimes I do stuff just like that. I'll just come across something and go, hey, that's fascinating, and I'll spend a few days reading up about it. And that it could be anything, like why is Pluto not a planet or something, or about the Higgs boson, Higgs is it Higgs boson? Higgs particle anyway. Yeah, no, we did the HNCs as a sandwich course, sort of thin sandwich, so 3 months at college, 3 months at work, 3 months at college, etc. But the degree course, they wanted me to do it full time, because it's a 3-year course. Full time was a degree course back then in telecommunications and electronics and things like that. So a night school was probably something like about 7 or 8, and of course they wanted value for money. They wanted to be able to use me, as a person with a degree, which a 7-year investment is a bit different to a 5-year, to a 3-year investment. I can understand it, but it was kind of like you can still do it if you want, but it's kind of like, yeah, but I don't have that much money. If you're not going to pay the course fees, then I can't afford it. Ultimately, I don't know whether it actually made a difference to my career back then. So, well, is that a reference to the age of the teacher, Free, or classmates? If you're asking me, Webbo, yes, but there's nothing on there at the moment. The YouTube channel is still Zaraganart. Yeah, it is Zaraganart. But I actually I've got to get round to finding myself a new video editing suite. then what I'll do is some of these videos like I'm doing here, the carving, well, you know, the carving or whatever, I'll time lapse and put up on there, but unless I go with something like Windows Movie Maker at the moment, the decent video editing suites are relatively pricey, so can't afford it. I suspect I might be able to find a free one somewhere around, especially under Linux, but then it's the rendering time under the Linux machines I've got would be somewhat horrific. I know with the video suite that I've got here, I can do real-time TV standard. That's not HD, that's the old TV standard. I can do real-time rendering, but HD stuff like this is I can get about half real-time, so I wouldn't like to do it on any of my Unix machines. I'd be there for days. I suppose I could always run another virtual machine on my server, but that would probably tie it up too much for other things that it's doing. AD Fall Guy, good evening. Welcome to the studio. I missed you last night. I thought you were going to broadcast again. Last night? Yeah, last night. That's right. It's Wednesday yesterday. My wife loved the charms, by the way. It's she and of course she loved the bracelet and the well, the two bracelets and the necklace, and now she wants more. I think I mentioned on your stream that she spent quite a bit of the holiday buying more jewellery, and now wants me to make her some more bracelets and anklets and necklaces. And she actually spent the first week I was away. She actually watched your stream. She was quite interested to watch how you did it. I think you were making and was it the first week or the second week? You were making a bag, a dice bag. I think that was the second week. So she probably watched you. She did see that a little bit as well. Is streaming hard to do, Weber? I'm assuming you mean me. In asking that, although of course we've got 3 streamers around at the moment. You've got 3D Bloke, you've got Eddie Fall Guy, and there's Bubbles the Monkey around in the background, busy painting. Is streaming easy to do? A difficult question, really. Technically, it's relatively easy to do. OBS and a webcam, and that's it. You're basically away as long as you've got a sufficient internet bandwidth. The hard bit about streaming is probably interacting with you guys. That's I think that's the thing that a lot of people find hard. It's relatively easy to just sort of broadcast yourself playing a game, and just the game audio's all that goes out, and that's about it. But for doing something like I'm doing here, creative wise, where it would be, there would otherwise be no sound whatsoever. Maybe the crunching of wood, but you know what I mean. It's not like a video game where there's background music and there's there's actual game sounds to keep the thing interesting. With a lot of creative stuff like this, you need to be, or I feel, shall I say, you need to be interacting with the people to keep things interesting, really, and that's quite a difficult thing to do, depending on your personality. Yeah, Free's right in that respect. It's having the confidence to start, I think, and once you start, and then you get better at it. Because it's like anything else. It's practice, and it's people get frightened about going on stage for the first time. Streaming is a bit easier than that because you don't actually see the people staring at you, which you would do if you were going on stage. But it is somewhat similar to that, and in fact it's kind of weird because I once did it was a communications course, communications as in talking and interacting with people, and one of the things that we actually had to do on that course was sit in a room by ourselves and give a presentation to a video camera that was sat on the other side of the desk like a person would be, but it's a video camera, nobody else in the room, but you to treat that video camera, if you like you were talking to a person, other people were watching at the other end of the link. But that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and yet what I'm doing here isn't that hard. Sorry, it's not as hard as that was. And for some reason, well, I think it's because of the feedback that you get. Okay, you're typing, I'm talking. But that allows for a measure of feedback, so we can hold a sort of a discussion, and I'm not having to give actually a true monologue. And that's the hard bit. I think when you start, you have to start by giving a monologue, because a lot of people, I feel, will join a stream, and if there's nothing being said, it's dead silent, they'll go away. I mean, I do that myself, to be honest. If I go to a creative stream and after 10 minutes nobody said anything, I kind of get bored. So that's the sort of thing to get started. You have to give some sort of discussion. If it's only describing what you're doing, then it helps you get going. Yeah, Eddie, you're right. It is in any sort of discussion going. I think I probably have had an advantage in that one of the things I'd done in my career is I've been a lecturer, a technical subject lecturer, to a room of people, and you're standing up in front of a class. Okay, you've got them in front of you, but it's not an interactive thing. You're teaching somebody, so you're writing stuff on a board, you're explaining stuff, and I kind of when I started streaming, I kind of do that almost naturally now. And you'll find if you at the start of the stream, or when there's nobody talking back to me, I'll drop into that and I'll start talking about the chisels. I'll start talking about the wood, and more talking about what I'm doing than sort of interacting. But yeah, the camera is easy now. Is easier now for you. I mean, it's, as I said, if I was just doing this as in fact, I think if I was doing YouTube, I'd probably find it quite hard. Would have found it quite hard as well, because again, there's absolutely no feedback whilst you're doing it. So it's a real that's actually the hardest thing to get over, I think, is the fact there's no feedback. Oh, what sort of thing would you have or do you broadcast then, Just Jessup? I mean, it's you can say it's fairly easy to say it's all been done before, and it kind of has in a way. Carving's been done before, and what have you. But a lot of games, they've all been done before. But it's I don't know. I think, and certainly it's true for me. I don't. Whilst I watch a stream because it's something that's interesting to me, and that can be Farming Simulator, for example, and lots of people play that on stream. I'll stay with the streamer because of the personality of the streamer, what their discussion, what they're talking about, what they're saying, and that sort of thing like that. And that's why I'll stay on a stream, even if it's stuff that somebody's done before and I've seen done before. So it's don't necessarily be worried about doing something that you've just seen somebody else do. Well, that I would imagine is really hard. I've never had the confidence to do that. I used to play musical instruments. I used to play. I played a cornet and E flat horn in secondary school, but I wouldn't have the confidence to stand up on the street and actually busk at all. Yep, Free's right. You can do it better, or you can give a different point of view. I mean, there's lots of people that will sort of just go, well, we'll put one of these here, we'll put one of those there, and we'll connect this to this, and maybe you take a different tack on it. You say, well, what I'd like to do is create a high G ride, for example, but I've got to be careful not to make people sick. Therefore, I need this amount of space between. And you've just given a completely different slant on the same thing. They kind of just reminds me of one of the streamers I like, not streamers, one of the YouTubers I like watching is to do with Minecraft is I've done it again, Direwolf20. And one of the reasons I love watching him is because he actually explains why he's doing something as he goes along. What he's doing, he puts a little bit of suspense into it and all sort of stuff, but he'll actually explain what he's doing as he goes along, why he's doing it. Even if it's only I'm doing this for fun, but he'll actually explain what he's doing. He's sort of teaching as he goes along in some ways. And I watch him because I enjoy that style. There are quite a few other YouTubers and there's a few streamers that that I've seen before that play Minecraft and they just play it. They'll say, "Oh, I don't know, I'm going to build a reactor," and they go ahead and build a reactor. But you kind of think, well, why that size or stuff like that? And yeah, and that's. And I don't watch those anymore. I watched them and yeah, right, well, you built a reactor, so what? I mean, there are some that do some really fun, people who build computers out of redstone or something like that, which is just an amazing thing to watch, that somebody can actually think of that in their head. But and there's a guy doing pixel art in Creative on there, which is another amazing thing to watch. But for general sort of interest stuff, it makes a big difference. Why won't she allow the airbrush in the kitchen, 84 guy? I mean, if you're doing acrylic paint, well, as long as you stay away from com art, there's very little smell involved. And if you, I mean, if you get somewhere like the Createx stuff, or I was going to say ETAC stuff actually smells nice. I can't actually smell anything at the moment because of the cold, but this actually ETAC paint actually it's got a nice sort of sweet smell to it, which I actually like. Com art though smells terrible, smells horrible. They're both acrylic paints, but yeah, I mean, I've watched a few of the Redstoners, but to be honest, it's kind of like, yeah, right, yeah, you know, yes, you can make logic gates and stuff like that, but with the mods, to be honest, you know, you can take something that's the size, I'm going to say the size of a house, and it can be just a single block with the mods, and I kind of prefer that. You know, it's the big Redstone builds. They're just they're just you know, the display pieces. They're not an actual. Well, you know, I'm being a little bit sort of exaggerating here, but they're not sort of, you know, day-to-day playing. They're people enjoy making sort of spectacular builds that are one-off, and you know, a lot of them do it in creative and go from there. I kind of prefer, well, that's why I like watching Direwolf, I guess. I kind of prefer the automation thing where everything is done for you, and you're playing. You're not building a display piece. You're actually sort of building a great big factory. If you're getting a lot of overspray, Adi, to be honest, turn your pressure down a bit. Um, and put it against a board. Whether I assume you're asking me if I play any games, um, other than the ones with you guys. Games that I play, I like point and click adventures. I don't play them very often, so my favourite point and click stuff. My favourite point and click is the Cyan games. So that's the Myst series of stuff. I absolutely love those. Before those, text-based adventures, the Infocom games, everything back to Zork 1, which of course was a port of Dungeon, I think it was, from one of the mainframes. But in the more modern stuff, the games that I have sort of on the desktop, so to speak, Train Simulator, Farming Simulator, and Euro Truck Simulator, and that's about it. I think those are three. Yep. I would play Flight Simulator, but I would love to get a yoke and pedals and things to play the Flight Simulator, and until I do that, I'm not going to bother. But they tend to be the ones I play, and I like playing them. I don't quite know why sometimes, but there's just something about them which makes them fun to play. Yeah, they and then yeah, missed. Was it Raven? I can't actually remember what they were. There was 3 in the original series. Then they brought out 4 and 5, and they went to the multi-user online stuff, which failed unfortunately twice. They're well, I was going to say they're working on a new game actually, called Abduction, which is due to release, I think, the back end of this year, 2016. They did a Kickstarter for it, and it looks like it's going to be, well, coming from Cyan, it will be a really interesting game. And they're actually re-releasing all the Cyan stuff, the Mist, etc. It's available on Steam now. Almost, I think all of them are available on Steam, and they're actually available on mobile as well. Riven, not Raven, Riven, Riven. Yeah, the puzzles there are some fiendish puzzles, especially I think Riven's the one with a lot of the sound puzzles, if I remember rightly. You've got to be in the right mindset to play the Cyan games, especially those earlier ones. They got I think the later games got a bit easier, but yeah, I think there's at least one of them I actually haven't completed. I did what everybody does, and that is forget to close the door. And if you know that, whichever game it is I'm talking about, because I can't remember, if you've got that far, you know where I mean, because everybody forgets it, and if you don't close the door, you can't progress. I understand lots of people gave up at that point. Actually, the Cyan games. Just thinking, then they've always had sound involved. I think in a lot of the puzzles, and it's I found it kind of weird, because I always find the sound puzzles really hard. I can play a musical instrument. I could read a score, and I can tell when something's off key. But for the life of me, I always found a problem with trying to match sounds in those games. I always wish there was an alternative. You kind of got to. I think you've got to wear headphones when you're playing those games to be able to do it properly. I can't quite get in there with that. Will that work that way? Yes, it will. Good. Oh no, it's all right. He's well, earlier on today I couldn't even remember wood grain, so yeah, don't worry about it, Eddie. I knew well, I kind of knew what you meant, even though I was trying to think. I don't remember Raven, but I knew which one you meant. Good night, just dress up. Yeah, one of the reasons I think I like playing, well, one of the reasons that I enjoy playing the games that I do play, like the train simulator, etc., is because Like for Euro Truck, I actually have the Logitech. I think it's a Logitech steering wheel, and I've got a train controller console for the train simulator, and I find it somewhat more absorbing. I get more into the game because I can actually physically control them rather than using a keyboard. What was it you were saying about the new Fallout? I haven't seen anything about that actually, 3D block. It kind of struck me as being an interesting game that I probably wouldn't play, but I'd like watch. I'd enjoy watching, because I watched quite a few of the streamers play the originals Fallouts. I sort of like, I don't play too many first-person shooters or third-person shooters, but I kind of like the ones where you end up exploring and looking for things. So I mean, like the original Doom, for example. I know that was if it moves, shoot it. If it doesn't move, shoot it, just to make sure it doesn't move. But that had a massive exploring element in it. And quite a few games since then. I'm trying to think now of the horror one, which name has escaped me now, with the Umbrella Corporation. Those as well. That was there's a lot of shooting in there and what have you. But again, it's all about not all about, but a large element is the exploration and the solving of puzzles, and that's I'm quite happy with that style of game as well. I don't know, Webbo. Dashboard. I was going to say you can look just below the stream. It probably tells you there, but what does it say at the moment? On my dashboard, it says 214. Any particular reason for asking? I mean, it's a nice number, but I'm not particularly going to try and get people to follow, if you see what I mean. It's nice if they do, and I'm grateful for people that do stream. Sorry, do follow. It's nice. It's nice to dream, if you like, that one day I might be able to do this as an actual job. But I think 3D mentioned it earlier. If you are streaming, don't concentrate on how many people you've got following you. It comes across in the stream as being somewhat mercenary, I think, and I think that turns quite a few people away. I haven't seen the trailer. I'm surprised because it's not on Twitch somewhere then being broadcast every stream start. Thank you for the compliment, Web of his Beast. Well, feel free to spread the word. I mean, I do look at the stats because it's interesting, and I'm not chasing stats or anything like that. I just find it interesting, the numbers and things. But and because I work with numbers and things like that at work often, as I mentioned earlier on in the stream. So sometimes we get involved in statistics at work and what have you. So I do look at them, but I'm not particularly chasing them. And so I find things like I think it was free. You pointed me at a site called Social Blade, and it's been kind of fun to watch it on there. I think it thinks I am now 92,000th in on Twitch in terms of the most, whatever it counts as ranked, 92,000th on Twitch, and it's kind of like, well, when I started it was probably 150,000th. So Lathan, thank you very much for following and adding to that number of followers that Webber was asking about earlier. That's very nice of you, thank you, and I do appreciate you doing that. I find things like the Twitch stats actually quite funny to keep an eye on, just from the point of view of things like, it'll be things like you've had 20 unique views. And it's always 20 or 40 or 60. It's never 25 or 28 or something like that. It's kind of funny where their stats come from.